Baby, it's cold outside. So our theme this morning is making it real, and I have a real reading as our opening words. It comes out of a little picture book called Wooden Churches that has photographs of old 19th century churches and commentary about them, and this is a commentary about one of these old churches. Things there were done very literally. One thing they did at that church that I'll never forget was that they had a big plyboard thing in the front of the church full of light bulbs. This was at regular church. If you were present, you and your family, you'd go up and screw in your light bulb, and it would turn on. And over the top of the whole thing it said, "Let your little light shine." And if you weren't there, it would be so obvious to everyone else in the congregation because your little light would not be shining. Guess what we're going to sing as our first hymn. And in addition to the words that are in the hymnal at number 118, we're going to add a couple of final verses, and these were verses that I learned growing up in a Unitarian Universalist church in the 1960s, and we had hand gestures that went with every verse all around the neighborhood. Hide it under a bushel. No! Nobody is gonna, and you don't say the word blow. What you do is you say, nobody's gonna it out. Nobody's gonna it out. And for further introduction, we have Mr. Bradford Connor.
So the choir and I had to work on this one this morning because there's a bit of a trick to this. So what we're going to do, we're going to sing the 3 verses that are on page 118, but you need to have that bulletin handy, okay? Because we're immediately going to go straight into the version in the bulletin. Except in the bulletin, John has it written as this little liberal, which is 2 syllables too many. And so the choir and we were just like, ooh. So when you go to the bulletin, even though John has this little liberal, we're just going to go this liberal. Is anyone's light here that little anyway? So just go straight for that liberal light of mine when we get to it. And we're not going to do it straight out of the hymn book with piano or organ accompaniment because that's too square. Is there anyone here who learned it with piano or organ accompaniment? Everyone here learned it around a campfire or just sort of singing along. Plus, they changed the tune in the book. That drives me as a musician. It drives me crazy. So anyway, let's stand up and let's just start it. And I'm going to get it going. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. Everywhere I go.
Feet because we're joining in our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. Good morning. Do it again. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. If you have been here absolutely forever, or if this is your very first time, and if this is your very first time, this is just your lucky day because you came here on Stewardship Sunday, our day to call sacred attention to our annual canvass and our needs to raise money for this congregation. thank you for your courage in showing up, whether you knew this or not. If you are new and want to stay in touch with what goes on around here, there are blue connection cards in the pews, and that's a helpful thing to do. There is a welcome table on your way to community hour where you can introduce yourself and find out a little bit more about us. And there are all kinds of things going on around here. Oh, first of all, I wanted to call attention to this picture on the front of your order of service. This is a picture of Anita Truman Pickett, who was the first ordained female minister to serve here in Bedford from 1937 to 1942. Now, this photo has actually been, I believe, photoshopped somewhat. She had a wheelbarrow in the original photo that now has all kinds of money piled into it. But what this reminds me of is visiting the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. That is one of the largest UU churches there is. And once when I was there, they had, 800 or 1,000 people in church, and they would pass big offering plates down the pews and back, but then they had bushel baskets in the center, and they would then dump these plates into the bushel baskets. They practically needed a wheelbarrow in order to collect the offering each Sunday. We can do that if it turns out to be necessary. Take a look at things that are going on around here today. There is another Me Too conversation for men that will happen at noon upstairs in the room numbered 204. And I have purchased the quiche for that session, so please join us. At the same time, there will be a racial justice workshop in the next room, in room 202. And I see on the calendar that next Saturday is another not-to-be-missed event, a cocktail party and dance party that also celebrates the beginning of our stewardship events, and we hope that you'll join us for that. This ends the sacrament of announcements, and I turn it over to Lisa Rubin.
Someday. All right, hello. Can you hear me? Good. This Elephant and Piggy book, Should I Share My Ice Cream, by Mo Willem, is brought to you by Jaya, Dara, and Lisa Koshik, and Lisa Rubin. Ice cream! Get your cold ice cream for a hot day.
Oh boy, ice cream. One ice cream, please.
Here you go.
Oh boy, I love ice cream. Wait, Piggy loves ice cream too. Piggy's my best friend. Should I share my ice cream with her? Should I share my awesome, yummy, sweet, super great, tasty, nice, cold ice cream? Maybe Piggy doesn't like this flavor. Sharing a flavor Piggy doesn't like would be wrong. I will eat the ice cream. Wait, Piggy will like this flavor. It is very yummy. I will share my ice cream. It will not be easy. Hey, Piggy is not here. She doesn't know I have ice cream. I will eat the ice cream. Where is Piggy? What if she is sad somewhere? I must find her. When I do, I will say, would you like some of my ice cream? Then she will say,
Thank you. That would cheer me up.
then I will give her my ice cream to share. Then my best friend will be happy. I will do it. I will share my ice cream. No! Now Piggy cannot have any of my ice cream. Now I cannot have any of my ice cream. I blew it.
You look sad. Would you like some of my ice cream?
Thank you. That would cheer me up. Yum. That was not my plan. Oh well, this works too.
The theme of this service is making it real, and we hope you got the point of that story. And so kids and their teachers are going off to in-gathering, and as they do, we will sing Spirit of Life. It's number 123.
Carrying too much?
This morning's reading, Marge Piercy's poem, To Be of Use, is very close to being part of the canon of Unitarian Universalist scripture. To be of use. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element. The black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry and a person for work that is real. Freely we have received. Really. Freely give. Really. For the good work of this congregation within and far, far beyond these walls, our offering will now gratefully be received. I'm Doug Mutter, and I'm here representing the Stewardship Committee. Today's the beginning of the annual Stewardship campaign, when we ask you to make a financial pledge to First Parish for the coming church year. As you've already heard, this year's theme is Make It Real. What we're trying to call attention to with that slogan is the difference between groups that have good intentions and groups that actually make things happen in the real world. Fundamentally, that difference boils down to two factors. If you're going to make real things happen, you need people who are willing to commit their time and energy, and you need money. Money is what we can quantify, so that's the number we ask you for. But stewardship is really a bigger question. What are all of us willing to do in the coming year to make things real? How are we going to take the ideals and hopes and visions of this congregation and turn them into events and actions and things we can hold in our hands? I can't ask you for a number that sums up how much effort and creativity you're going to contribute in the coming year, or how far out of your comfort zone you're going to be willing to go to make things happen. But those also are questions that we ought to be considering during this campaign. Over the next few weeks, a number of parishioners are going to be up here doing what we call stewardship moments. In other words, they're going to explain in a few minutes what First Parish means to them and why they are committed to it. Those moments have a deeper purpose than just to convince you to give more money. What they're about is getting you to examine your own relationship to First Parish, what this community means to you, and what it could mean. During my 23 years here and my 30 years as a UU, I've thought about my pledge in 4 very different ways.
But what that's really about is that over time, I've experienced 4 very different relationships with my church. The first time I pledged, I had what you might call a transactional relationship. I wanted to pay for what I used, so I tried to figure out what that would amount to. Coffee and cookies, my UU World subscription. I know it costs something to put on a service, so I invented an imaginary ticket price to cover that. I added something for the other events I go to, the classes and concerts and discussion groups. I like to talk to a minister once or twice a year about what I'm trying to do with my life and how it's going, so I added a little for that, and so on. Eventually, I came up with a number that represented the transactional value I was getting from the church. If I contributed that much, I figured, then I was paying my way. But before long, my relationship changed to what I think of as a charitable relationship. I started to believe in Unitarian Universalism as a movement, and I liked the idea of an institution spreading UU values in the community. So I wanted to support more than just what I used myself. That kind of relationship means that I want this church to have good services even on Sundays when I'm not here. And I want those services available to people who aren't able to pay the imaginary ticket price. Even though I don't have kids in RE, I like the idea of teaching UU values to the next generation. I want to support a broader array of social justice activities than I can work on myself. I want our ministers out there being a voice in the community, and I want them available to whoever needs them, not just to me. That led to a different pledge because it was a different relationship. A few years after that, my relationship changed again in a way that's kind of hard to describe if you haven't gone through this change yourself. The best analogy I can think of is what happens to homeowners when they stop evaluating improvements in terms of resale value and start thinking, this is my home. How do I want my home to be? In other words, I started to take ownership of First Parish. This is my church. I want it to be a good church. So, for example, it's not just that I want some church to give sanctuary to immigrants facing an unfair deportation order. I want my church to do it. Last year, when I went to the Women's March on Boston Common, it made a difference to me that I wasn't just one more face out of 200,000. I was there with my people. The plan to make this building as close to carbon neutral as we can, I supported that because that's how I want my church to be. That sense of ownership, of deep belonging, it led to yet another way of thinking about my pledge. Now, originally I was going to close with that, but as I was explaining those 3 relationships to Deb, happy anniversary, she pointed to a 4th, a legacy relationship. There aren't many things that you do in life that leave a mark in the world. Something that continues through the years, maybe even beyond your lifetime. Raising a child can leave a mark. Maybe something in your career will leave a mark. There are a few other places you might try to leave a mark, but there aren't many. Most of what we do in life is stuff that evaporates almost as soon as we're finished doing it. But now think about the people who started this congregation. They made a mark that we can still see almost 3 centuries later. The people who built this meeting house in 1817, we're still benefiting from what they did. And we have continued that work. I was pretty new in the church when I started seeing drawings of what would become the common room. Then we had a capital campaign, and we made those drawings real. That room will probably outlive all of us. I've talked to older members who were on the search committee that decided that this young John Gibbons guy might do okay as our minister. What if you did something like that? You think you might still be proud years and years later? First Parish is a place where you might try to leave a mark. That is a different relationship from paying your way or supporting UU values or even taking ownership. So today, we're starting a stewardship campaign like we do every year. In a few days, you'll get a mailing that has one of these hot pink pledge cards in it. And we hope you'll write a big number on it and send it back to us. In the coming weeks, you'll hear all kinds of numbers, how many pledges we've received, and what they total up to, and how much more we need to make our goal. But through it all, I don't want any of us to lose sight of the lesson of the stewardship moments, that numbers are just the surface of this campaign. The deeper point is to get you thinking about the relationship you have to First Parish now. And even more important, thinking about the relationship that you want to have. And I hope that leaves you with a question. In the coming year, what might you do to make that relationship real?
Thank you, Doug. We could go straight to the closing hymn, but no. The predecessor organization to our Unitarian Universalist Association was called the American Unitarian Association, and it was founded in 1825. On the back of your order of service, I have reproduced one page from the AUA's first annual report. The American Unitarian Association celebrated their first anniversary on the evening of June 30th, 1826, in the Pantheon Hall in Boston. The meeting was opened with prayer by Reverend Dr. Bancroft, the president of the association. The treasurer, Louis Tappan, read an abstract of his report, which is here printed with more detail. To the following sums expended by order of the executive committee, these. And I'll tell you that this morning I Googled these because I never really knew what that meant, and that is Latin for namely. Namely, traveling expenses of Mr. W. Burton, obtaining subscribers and collecting subscriptions, $104.45. To some allowed Mr. Burton as compensation for his services, $12.66. Counterfeit bill taken by Mr. Burton, $3. What? In the first tender year of the AUA's existence, some con artist grifter slipped them a fake, phony, bogus, no good, counterfeit $3 bill. Doug's and my sermon, you may recall, is titled, Make It Real. Yes, this is a sermon on the amount, encouraging you to be thoughtful and to be generous when you estimate the amount of your giving to First Parish. Yes, we do some variation on this every year. It cannot be taken for granted. And yes, we have tried almost everything. There have been skits and songs and poems. We really don't do guilt, but we've tried being serious, being funny, being playful, being spiritual. Last week, not this week, we sang a hymn with the words, "Our world is one world. Its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall." We always try to be respectful. These are personal decisions. We also try to be direct and transparent. Our goal this year is to raise $465,000. Were we able to share equally, this would be an average gift of $1,768. As it is, let's be real, there are some people who can give little or even nothing. Last year, there was only one person able to give more than $10,000. That person was not me, though I'll say I was breathing down their neck. These numbers are good and not so good. They're good in that we are not so dependent on a bunch of high givers who may die or move away or get mad. Almost all of us pitch in, and that's good news. These numbers, however, are not so good in that, given our demographics, we really could have more higher givers. I mean, my salary is public knowledge, and for me to be one of the top givers, I mean, really? There's something wrong with that. So yes, we've tried most everything to get your attention and have yours be not a rote decision, let's just pick a number to put on the card and get it over with, but a considered, dare I say, prayerful, by which I mean an aspirational, value-driven, purposeful decision. We have, I must admit, tried some rather far-fetched approaches. A long time ago, there was a fair share theme, and there were T-shirts made with my face and the face of Cher. You know, C-H-E-R. Me and Cher. And yes, there were fake $2.50 bills, also with my face and that of the aforementioned Cher. Folks, counterfeit bills are never the solution. They solve nothing. So let's make it real. What's real, as Doug indicated, is all that we have inherited. We have inherited this place, this institution, this ethic that love is the spirit of this church. We've inherited all this from the generosity of the past. Read Sharon McDonald's still hot off the presses history of First Parish. The names of those three upstairs rooms, Blinn, Bacon, and Page, all were families who kept First Parish alive when it really could have died. This chandelier was a gift from the Bacon family. The bell in our steeple was given by Clara Blinn, and it is inscribed, "To live in the hearts we leave behind is not to die." And from here I can see a picture of Clara Blinn with the bell on the ground before it was lifted into the steeple. And you know, Clara Blinn's hat in that photo looks exactly like the bell. There is in almost every one of our hymnals a book plate honoring one of our forebears. When you have a chance, look at the book plate in the hymn in the hymnal in your pew. the embroidered hymnal covers, every last one of them, were a gift from our partner church in Transylvania, where, just by the way, they have suffered this week devastating river flooding. Sometime take a look at all the names on that legacy tree in the corner, all of whom have remembered First Parish in their estate planning, as have I and as might you. And when you go to Community Hour, remember Elizabeth Goodale, whose parents were Alice and Bernie Weber. Elizabeth gave, I think, $200,000, which, with gifts, as Doug mentioned, from many of you as well, made possible everything from here and behind me. These are all the people who have made this real for us. Fast forward to today. We are a strong church. Here is a strong choir. We can be stronger still, and there is always room for improvement. We are working to strengthen our religious education, our youth groups, our programming for young families. Remember the 16th century Polish Unitarians who weren't trying to be funny, but who said, "We ought not be ashamed if in some way our church should improve." Nonetheless, we are strong and we are a model for others. Regularly, people come and want to know about our accessibility projects, about our eco-conservancy, about our advocacy for solar panels and renewable energy. Last week, an area minister came to see me because she wanted to know about our efforts in climate justice and racial justice and social responsibility. She wanted to know our secret, she said. I know we think we've barely scratched the surface, but to others we are a model of strength. Brown Pulliam is one of our octogenarian rabble-rousers who was the front page story in last week's Bedford Minuteman, and we can attend his and Diane Martin's trial for environmental civil disobedience next week. There will be more arrests to come. And just so somebody stays out of jail, we've now interviewed 4 very promising candidates for our second minister position. And without exception, they have expressed genuine admiration for our reputation as a spiritual center with a civic circumference. And they were for real. They weren't pulling our leg. They said what they meant, and they meant what they said. First Parish is a real place 100%. And even the imperfect parts are real. I will close, however, by again reminding ourselves of a reality which is so real, we really don't need to be reminded. We are a sanctuary church. We are quite literally responsible for the life of our guest, and we have significant responsibility for her family as well. We are one of only 3 churches with guests in Greater Boston. To my knowledge, we are the only such UU church in New England. There are 800 sanctuary churches in this country, but nationwide there are only 30 to 40 currently with guests. Our immigration crisis is vast, and our government is shameful beyond description. We can protect, but one or two people, but as is said in the Talmud, to save but one life is to save the world. Our congregation has trained more than 200 volunteers who are here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We need more volunteers, by the way. 9 congregations, including 2 Jewish congregations, have entered into supportive covenant with us. For years, we have talked about collaborating with other UU and other congregations that may be only a few miles away, and it has never happened until now. Until there came into view such large and unacceptable realities such as the inhumane, immoral, and un-American treatment of immigrants. And until we realized that we must meet such realities with realities of our own. Until we realize that there are common purposes greater than any of us individually, and until we realize that we cannot accomplish our purposes only by ourselves. Every week recently, we get offers of help and financial contributions from congregations and individuals, some of whom we have never heard of, but who have heard of us. This is fundraising and friend-raising. Richard Rhodes, one of the ministers at Grace Chapel in Lexington, emailed me about Sanctuary. He said, "This is beautiful, faith-filled work. Way to go in marshaling the troops to do in my faith tradition exactly what Jesus called us to do." Grace Chapel telling us that we are doing what Jesus called us to do? Really? Last week, Maria was visited by an American nun, Sister Peggy O'Neill, who lives and works in El Salvador. She does justice work, Sister Peggy said, so that Jesus did not die in vain. So do we, she said. She is, and we are, she said, afflicted with hope. Afflicted with hope. We are making the gospel, we are making the good news real. All of this is very humbling. Our sanctuary work, however, is not supported in our budget. That is really not what your pledge, your stewardship gift goes to. Sanctuary costs money, but it is actually raised separately. Someone asked me last week if Sanctuary has been a drain on our resources. I said, no. Sanctuary has amplified our resources of energy and passion and purpose and solidarity. I tell you about Sanctuary because our being a sanctuary is made possible because we are a strong congregation. We are a strong congregation for many reasons, not least of which is that we are financially healthy, that we can meet our goals, and that we will be financially generous to the very greatest extent to which we are capable. Make it real. Keep it real. Accept no counterfeits. Really. This is a we're all in it together kind of closing hymn. It's number 288, All Are Architects. This poem is titled Money. Money, the long green cash, stash, rhino, jack, or just plain dough. Chalk it up, fork it over, shell it out, watch it burn holes through pockets. To be made of it, to have it to burn. Greenbacks, double eagles, megabucks, and Ginnie Mays. It greases the palm, feathers a nest, holds heads above water, makes both ends meet. Money breeds money, gathering interest, compounding daily, always in circulation. Money. You don't know where it's been, but you put it where your mouth is. And it talks. Somebody say amen. Amen.
Shalom Chavarim, Shalom Chavarim, Shalom, Shalom. L'Yisrael, 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 Shalom. Let all join hands across every land. Let fighting cease. Let every bell ring. Let everyone sing of love and of peace. Shalom, Chavarim, Shalom, Chavarim, Shalom, Shalom.